Hi, I'm Anita Faust, and welcome to my channel. Tonight, we're going to talk about dealing with bullying in the workplace. Yesterday, or the previous episode, I gave out some information about how to deal with evil coworkers. But there's some people who are not even really coworkers, they're just bullies. And we want to talk to you tonight about how to deal with bullies in the workplace. Welcome back to the channel. And tonight we're going to talk about getting down to the real nitty gritty. I don't care what you call them, male chauvinist pigs, whatever the name may be for the person or persons who are bullying you on the job. It is what? Illegal. Now, let me remind you, I am not an attorney. I'm just basing what I'm talking about on my experience in life. And I use the term bullying to cover a whole lot of different types of behavior, including male chauvinism, racism, all of the above. It's just, it doesn't matter what it is. When someone is trying to take advantage of you and trying to intimidate you, it's still bullying, no matter what they're trying to do it based upon. So that's the way I just blanket it all under bullying. Now, I revealed to you on the previous episode about someone asking me, how did I get the job? And a friend of mine later on told me, hey, you should have said I slept with the boss, and just started laughing. Well, I didn't think of that, but there are a lot of things that I did think of, and documenting was one of them. You have really got to document. I cannot emphasize enough about journaling. You should just make it a habit to journal. It doesn't even matter if there's anything going on that's wrong, period. Just, how your day went. And it doesn't have to be only about the job, it can be about anything. But you will find out in life that if you write things down and able to retrieve it, because it's important to be able to retrieve it, and you have to put it in a place where other people can't find it and destroy it as well. That's why I always suggest for you to do it at home. You're less likely to have the bully to come to your house, I'm pretty sure. But your bully can come to your workplace. I've had them to steal my laptop, which belonged to the company, off the desk. I said mine, it was in my possession, but it really was the company's laptop. I've had them to steal my photographs off of my desk. I've had them to steal my clothing. And when I was doing this, I'm going to work, I didn't even think about, you know what, you need to just leave everything in your car locked up. So I lost a lot of precious photographs and things of that nature, and you never ever found out who it was that took it. Now, they did bring my laptop back to me, so I was grateful for that, but I wish they had brought everything back. But that is a bullying tactic too. It's a thief, but the thief is taking things that they know you will miss. But let me move on. Okay, so now that we understand what bullying is, when people try to intimidate you on the job, it could be because of your gender. It could be because of who you look like, or what race you appear to be, because some people can get it wrong. You could be a Native American or an Indian or whatever the title may be, and they may think you something else. And then they try to treat you in a really bad way, but it doesn't matter because we all come in different colors. You cannot discriminate based upon what you see. You never know. A person that someone thinks is white may really be of African descent or Native American descent or whatever you want to call it. Still, it's bullying. Now, what do you do if you're being bullied? Beyond the journaling, let's talk about journaling again. I cannot emphasize enough. Every time I tell you this, you should really remember, journal, journal, journal. Whatever happens, even if they say they're kidding, document it, write down what time it took place. Now, you don't have to bring your whole journal to work. You can just get a piece of paper and write it down and put it in your pocket. But there is a way for you to keep up with who was there, what time was it, what day was it. All those things make a difference. As a matter of fact, when you take off from work, you need to keep that in your journal, what day you were not at work. It's important. And you will find out when I tell you some of the stories that I had to tell you tonight. So journal, journal, journal. What time, what day, who was there, what was said, how did people respond, how did you respond? All those types of things have to be kept in the journal. Not only that, you have got to be cool as a cucumber, even if they call you the N word, whether you are N word or not. Because I don't think N words exist, but people like to use that terminology. You know what I'm talking about. So the bottom line is this: you have to stay cool as a cucumber. You have to document, look and see who's listening, see what their reactions are going to be. And don't depend on them to come to your rescue. Oh, no, 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 no. Just because they actually were there, they can always make like they didn't hear it. So you've got to make sure you have yourself covered. Document, document, document. And you have to be courageous. All right. So let's say you're keeping your documentation. That's a plus. That's a plus. And you're keeping your cool. That's a plus. That's a plus. Now, if you're under distress, and this is distressing, and there happens to be an employee handbook, an employee a manual from the company, make sure you have that on you at all times. You need to know what that manual is. Now, I'm old school, so I'm talking about you physically having it, but maybe you'll have it on your phone. Maybe there's a website that has the information on it. However you need to do it, you need to get a copy and find the page that pertains to whatever it is that you're going through. I mean, it could be page 5, paragraph 2. And this is the way, if something really goes down, the journal becomes more of a more detailed item then. You have to say, this was in violation of the employee code, whatever it is, on page 5, paragraph 2, and then you give your reasons why. Now, I am not an attorney. Let me emphasize that over and over again. But if you ever need to hire an attorney, and you need to be really careful when you go to hire an attorney. You don't want one who's trying to pay off their bills and they are overwhelmed with bills because you might get sold out. Now, I'm not saying every one of them will, but it's a high possibility that things happen. I know of too many cases that were just, easy peasy, and the lawyer just missed the deadline. How hard is it to keep a deadline, y'all? But many cases have been lost because a deadline was missed. It's your job to keep up with the deadline, no matter how much the attorney says, I got you, you don't have to worry about it. Yes, you do, because it's your money, it's your life. And if it's a criminal case, it's your behind going to jail. The bottom line is this: document, document, document. And you need to know what agencies as well. But I'm jumping a little bit ahead of myself here. So let me go back about the documentation using the employee handbook or the manual or whatever they're calling it these days. And you need to actually document exactly the way they have it laid out. And there may be a time period. You may only have a month, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 180 days to report when this took place. Now, the thing about it is, I know how it is. You do not want to rock the boat necessarily on the job. But if these things start happening to you a lot and you keeping up with it, at some point you're going to have to report it. And sooner is better than later. I know the backlash may be there. And that's why I always say, keep your money right. You got to have your money right. You know what I've taught you about cutting off that electricity at the box if you can, so that you can be in control of that electricity. Bottom line is this, is that you have to have your money saved up, because this is the way the world works for some reason. You can be just as pleasant as you can be. There are people out there who are just possessed by a devil, it appears, and you don't want to give your power away to them. So you have to use your power for good, good to yourself. You have to have your money right. You have to cut back on your spending and keep your money in your pocket, because you might have a rainy day created by someone who's messing with you, but not because you lose your cool, because you know what you're doing. You got your money right. If you don't, you're getting it right. So you document, and now it's time to make a decision, depending upon what your employee manual says. Now, do you have an employee assistance program where you work? Now, this sometimes has, the program has people who are like therapists that you can go to. Supposedly, it's just between you and them, but You never know. The bottom line is this: you have to use that EAP, Employee Assistance Program. You need to go to the therapist. You need to let the therapist know what's happening with you. And they may not call themselves a therapist, it might be a consultation, whatever it's called. This gives you more proof that you're going through something on the job, and you have to let them know. All right. So now the next step is, do you want to go a step further and let your supervisor know what's going on? Or if it's your supervisor that's the bully, whoever is up in the hierarchy, that's the next step. Now, keep remembering this: there's a clock going on. You've got a certain amount of time to file a complaint. The bullying may continue. You may feel helpless, but you're not going to give your power away because you know what to do. You know that there are agencies outside of the job that can hold the whole company accountable for what happens to you. So let me give you an example of something that happened to me. I was working on this job while I was in college. It paid very well. I worked from 4 o'clock to midnight. So I went to school in the daytime and came to work, and it was a hostile work environment. This is way back in the 70s, and people hadn't gotten used to people who looked like me being on the job. And I just tell you, it was a fantastic job and it paid very well. And let me tell you some of the things that happened on the job. Well, I was a computer operator. Back then we had a huge room of nothing but computers, and they were huge. Nothing like what you see today where everything's pretty small. It's just a huge room. So a computer operator had to put tapes on the computer tape machine. And I have to show you, I have pictures of me doing this back in the 70s. But there were men, and this was a male dominated industry at the time. And they did not want other people who looked like me, they didn't want them to learn it, so they withheld information. This is one of the bullying techniques. They withheld information. So the computer would print things out, like the commands that you had to type in. They didn't want anyone to learn the commands. They wanted to have all the information, so there would be no competition. They could not be replaced because they were the ones that had the information. And what they would do is that when the information printed out on this printout, because it was constantly printing out, sort of like a teletype, they would tear the paper off, fold it up, and stick it in their pocket. Okay. One of the things they did, they were going by military time, and I wasn't used to military time. And so I missed coming to work one day because I didn't understand what the time was. I didn't have the understanding of how to use a calendar and look at what they had written down and figure out what was going on, and didn't know to ask anybody. And so I missed one day from working. Man, you thought I had killed Jesus or somebody up in there. And so after that blew over, I started getting really good reviews. I was so proud of me. I had overcome that handicap. And so one day I asked, could I get a copy of my record? You do know you can get a copy of your record, right? Because how you know what's in there if you don't look at it? So I went and got a copy of my record. And it was pretty full, but it was pretty positive, and they would let me make copies. And so I do a few copies every day. So one day, this guy who I was dealing with, who was giving me all these good marks, he wasn't there. So I went upstairs to where I thought my file was being kept, and I asked the secretary for my file. When I got to the copy machine and I saw this file full of negative, I had been written up. Let's say the date was June 15th. It had it written in the letter that was supposedly put in my file that I knew about, which I didn't. On June the 15th, which is the date of the letter, this is what they said happened. On June 30th, I did X, Y, and Z. So if it was dated the 15th, they had to have a magic crystal ball to know what I did on June the 30th. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. This was a setup. They were showing me the positive stuff, while they had a separate file. They had two books. They were cooking books. They had two different sets of books on me. They had the positive one that they were showing me. Then they had this negative one that I didn't know about. And just by the grace of God, this guy was out. And I went to the secretary. I wondered if the secretary knew what was in that file. I don't know, but she made sure I got it. And I made sure I copied every single page in that file. And I still have that paperwork to this day. Yes, two different sets. I'm thinking I'm doing a great job, which I was, but they're over here cooking the books and coming up with something else behind my back. So what I did after I made those copies, I went to one of my coworkers and I said, can you believe that this is the information that I was getting right here, but this is the information I got today, which is all this negative stuff. And I said, I'm going to go file with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which is the EEOC. And that person said, I'll go with you. Let me tell you something. For someone to put themselves in jeopardy like that, who said, I'll go with you, that's a warrior. That person went with me to the EEOC in Raleigh. I'm in North Carolina, so the EEOC was in Raleigh. And I physically went there. And of course, I won my complaint. I had all the evidence. But the fallout that happened afterwards, oh my goodness. Oh, you would have thought I had done them wrong. Oh, they mistreated me. Oh, they really bullied me for real then. So I'm just telling you, you can go file documentation and you can win, but at the same time, you can come back and have a really hard time on that job. But remember this, there's a clock ticking. If you want to give yourself 180 days, because in the case of most of these agencies, the federal government agencies, they give you 180 days from the date of the incident. Like for instance, the day I found out that they had written this letter, these letters had this negative file on me, that was the day that the clock started. So let's say it was on June 1st. I had 180 days, which I think June is the 6th month. The 12th month is December. So from whatever day, 180 days later, which is 6 months later, I had the time to actually find me another job. That's what I could have done at another company and still filed the complaint against them, because that's a hostile work environment and you don't want to work in that. That's bad for your health. So this is just an example of bullying in the workplace. And that's the name of an agency that I went to. And I did get relief from that situation. But man, I shouldn't have ever stayed. If I have any advice to give you, is that when you file it, you need to have another job at another company, or at least in another department where the fallout won't be able to hit you. All right, so the EEOC is the place that I went to. But let's remember, which one of the Supreme Court justices used to be in the EEOC? Anita Hill testified against this person, and they still put him on the Supreme Court. And now we've been hearing a whole lot of things about his wife being part of the, some people call it an insurrection of January 6th, when Joe Biden was supposed to become president. It's supposed to be a smooth handoff. I don't need to tell you anymore about it. You can guess who it is. I'm not going to tell you his name, because you ought to know who this U.S. Supreme Court justice is. But he used to work in the EEOC, and I believe Anita Hill worked with him there, and all the fallout from what happened to her while she was working for him. So that's why you have to use more than one agency. You can use the EEOC. Tonight, the EEOC is the only one that I'm going to talk about. So that's one form of relief. But my experience as I've gotten older has been, you never file with one agency. You never file with one agency. That's one agency, but there's more than one agency that you can file with. And I'll tell you more about that in another episode. But the bottom line is this, is that you do not have to put up with bullying in the workplace. There are bullies in the workplace there are bullies in the workplace that think that they can do whatever they want to you. And as long as you don't know avenues of relief, then they will, and they will do it with no one doing anything about it because you're the one that you have to complain. You are the one. So the bottom line is this: document, check for the employee handbook or manual, which may be on the website. If there is an employee assistance program that has a therapist, you need to go there. If you have to let your supervisor or the manager or the director, whoever it is up in the higher echelons of your company, you have to do that. And Lord knows you need to document on a calendar how many days you have until your time expires. Well, I'm Anita Faust. I want to make sure you understand what the process is. I'm coming up with some, what I would call handouts in a classroom, but I'm going to come up with some freebies. I have some in process right now that you can get a copy of. I have the contact information, like for instance, the EEOC, for you to be able to contact that agency and have their website address. This is stuff we didn't have back in the day. So you guys are so fortunate that so much information is right at your fingertips. You do not need to suffer. But remember, always update that resume and have a side hustle going on. This is Anita Faust, thanking you again for listening. And you can check me out at anitafaust.com. Thank you.